Oh, you got your window open? Seems like bloody cicadas chirping away or something.
Yeah, they are. They're fucking going bananas. It's like you get a tiny bit of rain and
Mm,
fucking bugs come out.
brings everything out.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to the Tripod, where we break down every single NFL game every week from a punting perspective. Good week last week, 14-9 on best bets plus cash the Unibet multi. So we are over 500 actually on best bets for the first time this season, and still over 90 units. Up over 90 units on our multis. Merry Christmas, obviously, for a few days ago, and we won't talk to you again till the new year, so Happy New Year as well. Jacob, how are you? How was your Christmas? Are you ready for week 17?
Merry Christmas, mate. My Christmas was great. Thank you. Just to explain what you said there, over 500, that's a bit of a American term they use when they talk about your winning record in terms of three decimal places. So over 500, meaning over 50% winners, which we had a slow start to
We did.
NFL. We only deep dived after about week 6, so missed the first 6 weeks. It overlapped with NRL. You guys know that that's, our main focus at that point. Then, while we've had some lackluster weeks, we've kept it going with some really good results on the multis, up over 90 units, as you mentioned. And our record now in best bets is about 116, 112, which still, we perfectly admit, is not in profit. It's down about 7 units of best bets because every time we bet, we're risking $11 to win 10. We understand that, but we're trending well and truly in the right direction. And week 17, I love it. If people don't understand, final week of the regular season NFL, a lot of different factors in play which are unusual. When there's unusual circumstances, it's opportunity for the better. And we have deep dived into week 17, and there's going to be a lot of kind of hidden factors that's going to help us find value this week.
Oh, 100%. And I hear a lot of people say week 17, fuck it, don't bet on it because you just don't know who's playing, who's trying, who's motivated and stuff. But I'm with you, man. Like, I reckon week 17 is one of the best places to make some money betting, especially if you do your research, especially for correlated multis and stuff like that. And I know for yourself and myself as well, we've already put down a few early bets on this round, and some of those lines have moved. But like Jacob said, even with today's lines, we still do think that we have found some value.
Yeah, there's going to be some games this week. I'll give an analogy. You go out to dinner with a friend, and when the
This will
bill
be good.
comes, there's a little bit of a pretend fight over who's going to pay the bill. And if one person's just adamant they really want to flex and they want to pay that bill, they usually will. Then you got the person who really is happy to let the other bloke pay, but puts up a pretend fight. Oh, are you sure? Oh, I'll go halves. And if you can know which games you've actually got two that are dead set really trying to pay the bill, and where other games where one side really will give up a kind of a fake fight, that's where it's still uncertainty. And the poster child is last season, where we loaded up on the Giants playing a Dallas Cowboys team that had zero to play for and everything at stake the following week in wildcard weekend. But what did they do? Played their starters down to the wire all the way. The final score was something like 37-36. Played everyone balls to the wall. Flamed out a couple of weeks in the playoffs, as Dallas do, but killed us by winning a game they had no business winning by 1 point. So look, we're going to give you some scenarios that are going to be in our favor, but I'll tell you now, a team that doesn't need to win will fight for some reason and win and stuff things up. But I still think we'll be on the right side of the coin more often than not.
Yeah, totally agree. Which person are you, Jacob, at dinner?
Oh, pay half.
Hey,
What about you?
Go on, Doug.
You'll probably do a runner before the bill even comes.
Yeah, I'm option B, where you go, oh mate, no, I'll pay, but I didn't fucking bring the wallet. First up, Falcons +1 at the Tampa Bay Bucks, 47.5 is the total. Well, this is an interesting one. Obviously, both teams have been out of the playoffs for quite some time, but both teams have been playing very well of late. Both teams on a 5-2 run to finish the season. So, but I think the Falcons are the better team here. They are relatively healthy. Matt Ryan's playing a bit better. Julio's been getting the ball a bit more, and this Bucks team is just beat up as all shit. We know that Jameis's thumb has been an issue for him. It hasn't seemed like it's been an issue, but on top of that, now it's been confirmed. Now, obviously, Mike Evans has been out for a couple of weeks now, but Godwin was still a chance of playing this week. He's been ruled out. So Jameis and this Bucks passing offense, which is their strength, is not the same team that we saw a few weeks ago. They're missing their two best receivers and arguably top 10 receivers at that. So I think the Falcons are the much better team here. I think they get the job done even away.
Yeah, two teams I like, two teams that just have had lost seasons but had a bit of bad luck, be it in close games or with injuries, and it's just not going to be their year. And kind of two teams you wouldn't mind betting on late in the year because they're showing fight. Yeah. So I know I'm getting fight out of the Falcons. You mentioned since they came back from the bye, everyone is really putting in a lot of impressive performances. I think there's only been about 3 double-digit upsets this whole season, double-digit underdogs winning, and 2 of those occasions was the Falcons in the last couple months. Upset Saints and 49ers, right? So, they're fighting. Tampa's fighting too, but it's a team that loves to throw the ball, and you're missing 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers. It's pretty much that simple why we have to lean to the Falcons in this one.
Yeah, definitely. We've got 2 best bets on this one. We're taking the hook in the first half, Falcons plus a half in the first half. That's $1.83 on Bet365. And we're taking Falcons plus 2 points for the game. That one's $1.82 on Unibet. Moving on to the Bears laying 3 points at the Minnesota Vikings. 36.5 points is the total. A lot of you guys will probably look at this, and I did see a post in the group where someone was, and you mentioned it before, Jacob, motivation, where someone was just basically taking every team that was higher on the ladder to win the game, and that would be the Vikings in this one as underdogs. And you might look at this line and it is confusing to you. The Vikings, what the hell? Playoff team. The Bears aren't a playoff team. The Vikings are at home, but the Vikings are locked in to their number 6 seed. The Vikings are locked into the 6 seed, so they do not need the game. It was uncertain. Zimmer sort of came out and said, maybe we'll rest players, maybe we don't. He's come out today and said they definitely will be resting players. So that'll include, Cousins, obviously Dalvin Cook's out for a couple more weeks. I think he's maybe isn't even out for the season. You're still missing Madison. And he'll probably rest, some wide receivers and stuff like that. So this is not going to be the Vikings team that we're used to out here. The Bears, with nothing to play for but pride, but I think they're going to show up in this one. And honestly, against a second-rate Vikings team, the Bears should do enough to get the job done here.
Yeah, this will be a common theme where we're going to be betting against teams with nothing to gain in Week 17, but have a huge game next week. Correct. Because they're in the playoffs. And when news comes out that the coach specifically says, I'm resting player X or player A, B, and C, the line typically moves.
Yes.
But I'm not even too worried about what news there is around the game, who's resting, who's not. It comes down to more than that. Even when your key players play, they use plays that they practice, that they rehearse in practice and they want to get right when they really need it. They're not going to be using their best plays in a meaningless game. They don't want to put things on film that their opponent that they need to beat next week can see. The effort is questionable because you don't need the game. You're not desperate. It's not do or die. In fact, it's far from it. In the back of your mind, you've got a huge game next week. So there's a lot more to it than simply who's on the field. And then even if you hear that key players are playing, are they going to play the full number of snaps? Are they going to play the entire game? So these are all things you don't know you're getting if you take the Vikings, which we absolutely would not do. With the Bears, while they've got not much to play for, they're 7-8. So to play for an 8-8 season, not a losing season, that's something. Show some fight. They got embarrassed on Sunday Night Football, but that was against a very good Chiefs team. I do think with a head coach has not got full job security and a quarterback similar boat, that they should actually come in here and win this.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why we've taken the Bears laying 3 points. You'll find that one at $1.88 on both Ladbrokes and on Neds. Next up, the Browns laying 2.5 points at the Bengals. 44 is the total. I said last week this is the game that the Bengals want. They're at home. That's why I liked Miami last week against the Bengals. The deal with Bengals is they had to split or, they couldn't win their last 2 games essentially. And keep the number 1 pick. So they lost last week against Miami. They put up a great fourth quarter comeback, and you might think, will the Bengals be a bit let down from that? Come all the way back from 16 points down to lose in overtime. I think it's just the opposite. I think that loss there has enabled them to go hard out this week against the Browns at home, and I think this is the one that they really wanted at home, last game of the season. I think the Bengals are going to give max effort in this one. Because they can and still keep that number 1 pick, whereas the Browns are just in a tailspin at the moment. And look, the Browns might show up for this one, they might not. I just have a lot more faith in the Bengals showing up for this one. And even though they are, the less talented team, they're at home here. And I really think that the Bengals should probably be slight favourites in this one.
Yeah, you say a great comeback. They were down 16 points with 29 seconds left
And
and
I
got
was
to overtime.
you know how
And
stressed I was about that because I was on
yeah, you
Miami
had a same
shitting
game
myself.
multi with Miami. I mean, up 16 with 29 seconds
That
left.
would
It's
have been bad.
impossible to lose that game, but it went to overtime and Miami did end up winning. But it showed the Bengals were fighting. I don't even know why they needed to fight that
No,
hard.
they shouldn't
As
have.
you say, at that point in time, they had not secured number one pick. And now they have. It happens to be a quarterback, Joe Burrow, almost certainly the man who will be going into Cincinnati next year, which also means this is Andy Dalton's almost certainly his last start. And he's a beloved guy, owns the record for most touchdown passes for the franchise. And he's, in a way, auditioning in this game to get a starting gig somewhere else. He's still a fairly decent QB who's made the Pro Bowl before and loved in the club. So I think the players will play hard for him. And that's why I like taking the +3 because we know we get a home team that should bring good effort. As you mentioned, like the Browns are inconsistent. Will they bring it? Maybe, maybe not. They can be a bit of a bully that sometimes does go well against inferior opposition. And if they're really focused, they could certainly cover this game. But you could write a book about the amount of turmoil that's been going on in that franchise this year and how can you trust them. And after being officially eliminated from the playoffs last week, it's as you say, it's just who knows what they're going to bring into Cincinnati this week. So the safer players take the Bengals plus the points.
Yeah, exactly. And we've gone with the Bengals +3. That one is $1.91 on Unibet. Next up, the Packers laying 13 points at the Detroit Lions. 43.5 is the total. Well, the equation's pretty simple for the Packers. You win this game and you are guaranteed a top 2 seed. You win this game and the 49ers lose on the Monday night game, then you get the number 1 seed. So the Packers are going all out in this one. Plus the fact that if they lose, they'll probably drop to the number 3 seed, which is certainly not what you want. So I think the Packers come here and take care of business. The Lions are a shambles. Obviously, you know, the QB play has been relatively bad for this Lions team. And the Packers, I don't think, you know, there's some teams that'll be scoreboard watching and stuff. For the Packers, it's easy. You just take care of business, you win, and you're into a top 2 seed. So the Packers are the far superior team here. I think they absolutely crush the Lions.
Yeah, that's right. They are. They're just going to be too good. And when you've got a simple equation, you just got to come in and win. I mean, there's a case to be made. The Lions are the worst team in the NFL now because Matt Stafford had the neck or back injury. He had to be benched, and then forget the backup.
Blau?
No, well, Blau's the third string, but they had name escapes me, but QB from Florida, Driscoll, I think it was Driscoll, who was mobile and could bring some stuff to the table. Now Blau. Now we bet against Blau in his first start, Thanksgiving, and they ended up pushing the game.
Yeah.
They were a +4 and they lost by 4. He threw 2 touchdowns in the first quarter.
75-yard touchdown off.
Since then, he's played 15 more quarters and he's thrown 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if he didn't have a couple of long plays in that first quarter that a lot of people watched because it was a nationally televised game, people would probably realize this guy's one of the worst QBs they've ever seen. So you've got no QB, you've got no defense. So we feel very strongly that Packers will blow them out and they should start their work early, come in focused, and Rodgers should lead the way.
Indeed, we've got 3 plays on this one. Like Jacob said, we do feel pretty strongly about the Packers. We're taking the Packers team total over 27.5 points. That is $2 on Unibet. We're taking the Packers laying 6.5 points in the first half. That's $1.87 on Unibet. We're going to take the Packers team total over 13.5 points in the first half. That's $1.82 on Unibet. Next up, the Chargers +8 points at the Chiefs. 45.5 points is the total. That is a tough one for us. Chiefs should win this game. They are the much better team, and the Chargers have been pretty awful as of late. But to be honest, this Chargers team isn't bad talent-wise, and their defense has gotten a little bit healthier as of late. And to be fair, like if the Chiefs really needed this game, I'd probably lay the 8.5 points. But it's very tough for the Chiefs to sort of move up into one of those top 2 seeds. They would need to win this game, and they would need to hope that the Patriots lose to the Dolphins, which is very unlikely. I'd say that's less than a 10% chance. So the Chiefs aren't dumb. Andy Reid's not dumb. They know that. They know that their chance of, bettering their position is not great in this spot. The downside for the Chiefs if they lose is they could drop from the 3 spot to the number 4 spot. How much of a disadvantage that is negligible. I don't think it's enough to let's say play your starters hard out for 4 quarters, just to avoid moving from the 3 to the 4. So if anything, you're probably looking at taking the Chargers plus 8.5 points here, but the Chiefs are just a much better outfit, so no play from us.
Yeah, and I said this a week or two ago, the Chiefs may be the second best team in the whole NFL. I think on a neutral venue, give me them against anybody other than obviously the Ravens, which everyone knows is the best. But they'll find themselves playing in Wild Card Weekend, unfortunately. They're going to end up 1 win behind the Pats. We said they've had a lot of injuries and dropped games earlier in the year they could not quite make up. Pats aren't losing to the Dolphins, so Chiefs aren't getting a bye. So they know they're playing next week. You don't want to bet on a team in this game with not much to gain and with one eye on next week. And the difference between this game and Chiefs at Chargers compared to the one we just spoke about in Packers at Lions, I really feel the Packers are so superior to the Lions. If they really focus, they can pretty much name their score and they can win by as much as they want to win by. I can't say the same about the Chiefs at the Chargers because let's not forget the Chargers won 13 games last year. They've gotten healthier. If the Chargers come to play in this one, I would not shock me if it's actually a good game and even a possibility of an upset. That's the difference here. But you mentioned you'd consider taking +8 or +9 with the Chargers, but they're so inconsistent as we saw the other day. They lost by 30 to the Vikings. So it's like with a hit and miss team that's inconsistent, you don't feel safe taking the points either. So a lot of games have uncertainty and we can find advantages in uncertainty sometimes. In this one, it could go so many different ways. Nothing feels strong enough to make a best bet.
Especially the way this Chiefs defense has been playing lately with Phillip Rivers there throwing his weird shot put throws. It's hard to trust.
And mentioning Phillip Rivers, it might be his last ever game at the Chargers. But that actually could be a motivational factor where they might lift for him, or it might be like he's got 1 foot out the door and he's got 10 kids he's got to get home, change nappies. I don't know. So we'll see.
He should go home. He should give it away. Speaking of the Pats, as we were, the Dolphins plus 16 points at the Patriots. 45 points is the total. Not quite sure how high you can make this line, but the Pats will win this game. There is zero doubt in my mind. They lock up the number 2 seed with a win here. And, they don't know what else is going on. Kansas City plays at the same time. So the Pats have full motivation to win this game, and they will. It's a bad spot for the Dolphins too, coming off an emotional overtime win at home. And now you have to turn around and be double-digit dogs at New England again. So I don't expect a good performance out of the Dolphins, and I expect the Pats to take care of business here. Don't want to lay the 16, or I think it's creeping up towards 17, because how I see this playing out is the Pats are going to be up 17 or 20-3 at halftime, and then they'll just run the ball down the Dolphins' throat. So you might be open to a backdoor cover there as well. But I think the Pats do take care of business, especially in the first half. And one other thing that we should mention, Edelman might not play this one. We know he's been quite banged up, but whether they'll risk him against this Dolphins outfit is yet to be seen. But the Pats will be far too good in this one.
Yeah, the Pats have to win it, as you mentioned, to get that bye, and they will. But what they don't have to do is win by a big margin. So there's not motivation for them to blow out the Dolphins. There's motivation to just make it comfortable. And if they've got a guy who's very important, as Edelman is, the most important player on the offense, really, probably apart from Brady himself, you probably don't play him because you don't need him to win this game. So then that you don't feel great laying 17 with. We've already got hodgepodge receivers on there and you might not even have your best one. So I love the plays we're grabbing, which is all about the Patriots getting on top and exerting their dominance early and then coasting the rest of the way.
Indeed, we've got 3 plays. The first one is the Pats minus 8.5 in the first half. That's $1.92 on BetEasy. We're taking the Patriots laying 3.5 points in the first quarter. That's $1.80 on Sportsbet. And a completely new bet. First time we've taken this one all season. The Patriots to win the first quarter to 0. That is $1.90 on Bet365. Next up, the Saints laying 13 points at the Panthers. 45.5 points is the total. Another one of these ones where the Saints are going to win this game. They're currently sitting in the 3rd seed, so they'd need, an upset to move up into the 2nd seed. But it's not impossible. Obviously Green Bay could lose, it probably won't. Or the 49ers could lose, and they might, So the Saints are going to try in this one. The Panthers, on the other hand, have been absolutely woeful. But there's one thing, and we will maybe release some plays later in the week. It's probably the squarest thing that you could possibly
tomorrow.
do. Oh, so yeah, tomorrow. But Christian McCaffrey who has been an absolute dominant force for this Panthers side, and the only player that has been doing anything for them all season long. He can become the third player in NFL history to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. He needs 67 receiving yards in this game. He also needs 219 scrimmage yards in this game to have the outright scrimmage record for a season. So the Panthers have come out and said they will feed Christian McCaffrey early and often. So as soon as those player props get released, make sure you have a little bit of a hunt around, because Christian McCaffrey, they'll probably shade the lines a little bit higher. But, I don't know how high you can make them. He's going to get at least 1,000 yards receiving in this game, and they're going to make, every chance for him to go for the record.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, no one cares about my fantasy team, but I'm in the final against you. Big reason I'm there is because my first pick was CMC. It's so fun to cheer for him. He's a freak. People questioned whether he could withstand, he's not the biggest frame guy. And also, he's a Caucasian, which is not common at the running back position. But he has been an absolute monster and all season long carried this team. And if it wasn't for the fact quarterback is so important, and also if their winning record was a bit better, he's done as much as you can possibly do at that position to have an MVP case. You said the only guy. Kuechly also made the Pro Bowl on the defensive side. Other than that, been a thin year for them. And I think if they lose this game, which they probably will, it's 8 straight losses to end the year. But I don't know if the franchise minds that, because they're kind of clearing house. It's a new owner. He's going to bring in his new, coach. They're going to decide who they want to quarterback this team. There's going to be a bit of an overhaul. And every loss is just a better draft asset as well. So I think this team actually is not necessarily all in to win the game, but more so to give their man, who they all love, this incredible record. It's not a meaningless record to be the all-time, scrimmage yard record holder in the NFL. And
he's dead set chance, 219.
And it's a funny one, though, because the Saints know that they're going to try and give it to McCaffrey, which makes the Panthers very predictable on offense, and the Saints will try and stop him, but he will still. If he's fed volume, he has absolutely every chance to get it. Last week, we gave out a few extra best bets on Sunday. Once we'd seen that the Rams had lost, we knew the Vikings had nothing to play for. We gave you 4 best bets on the Packers. We won all 4. That's the value of checking the app on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Again, we implore you guys, check the app Sunday evening, right, tomorrow, because not all the prop markets are out, and we're going to be looking for this and another game coming up where obviously it all depends what number the bookies set these at, but if we can find any value in a player prop for McCaffrey, be it total yards or receiving yards, that could be a way to find value. But in terms of this game, how the team will play, I'm not sure. And the Saints, they definitely want to win, but again, there's no incentive to win by margin because they could be playing next week too. So we got no best bet at this stage.
No best bets. Christian McCaffrey could have 40 touches in this game, and it would not surprise me. Moving on to the Jets, plus 1.5 points at the Buffalo Bills. 36 points is the total. Another one of those games where you might say, what the fuck, the Bills are way better than the Jets. Why are they only laying 1.5 points at home? Well, the Bills don't need the game, and they don't need the game at all. They can't go up, they can't go down. They're locked into the number 5 seed in the AFC. So they have no incentive to win and no incentive to start their starters, even though McDermott's come out and said that the Bills are going to play their starters at least for some of the game. Now, what the fuck that means, who knows? They said they've got stuff that they want to work on. So, look, if you ask me honestly, I'd probably say that the Bills will probably play some of their starters, limited reps maybe in the first half, and then pull them all in the second half. So, so the Jets, on the other hand, they, are completely out of playoff contention. They had a good win last week, got a bit of confidence. And so that's why we've gone with the plays that we've gone with. This is probably the first time that we've played third quarter and fourth quarter bets. But the reason being is because, like I said, there's way more chance that the Bills rest their starters in the second half than in the first half. And honestly, I can't see a scenario where the Bills play their starters for the entire game.
There's just no point. This team has had so little success in multiple decades. Yes, they did make an unlikely playoff run in McDermott's first year, which was 2 years ago, lost in the first round of the playoffs. This is different. This team has won 10 games. This team has pushed the Pats to the wire, had signature Sunday night wins, and will have a good chance against a likely opponent of the Texans next week. And when the biggest game in the last 25 years of your franchise is next week, and you've got nothing to gain from this week, You don't want to bet on them this week. And, the Bills, they're not a great team. They're an above average team. They've got a very feisty defense and offense that can get it done on the back often of Josh Allen being mobile, and he can tuck it and run and create plays. And why would he do that? And why would he extend any runs and try to run over people in a meaningless game? I mean, if he takes a hit and he goes into next week less than 100%, that would be diabolical, and that would be something that would affect McDermott's legacy at this team, and he is creating one. So there's so many reasons you want no part of the Bills. And the Jets aren't a lame duck. They've had a shocking year. We know that they lost their quarterback to kissing disease the first month and had some embarrassing games down to a third string. But then since Darnold's come back, they've been inconsistent. But I think that a team that gets a lot of scrutiny in New York, again, a first-year coach who is not a lock to be there next year, it is important for them to come out and play well. I've got a lot more confidence the Jets will win this game than the Bills, so hence the best bets.
Indeed, we're taking the Jets plus half a point in the third quarter. That is $1.81 on BetEasy. We're going to take the Jets just to win the fourth quarter in a two-way market. That's $1.89 on Sportsbet. Obviously, both those.
And so we didn't end up grabbing +2 with the Jets for the game. I can't remember.
We didn't.
We look for the best value we can find, you guys. And obviously, what I would hate to happen would be that we're right on this game and the Jets actually get up big and the Bills don't care, and the Jets are up like 17 in the third quarter, and then they coast and the Bills pull it back to 10 and the Jets win. But the reason I still feel good about like that fourth quarter bet is the Jets might be up 10, and a normal team that is down 10 is going to be throwing it every down, obviously trying to come back. The Bills might just be running the ball, kind of concede the game, don't want to get anyone hurt, don't want Allen standing in the pocket, throwing every down, either taking hits or throwing incomplete, extending the game, putting your defense back out there. A guy like Zadarius Smith, he's not going to be playing in the fourth quarter, and he's been a shutdown cornerback for them. So there's lots of reasons why, sneakily, I think the plays we're giving you guys could be the best way to play this game.
Although nothing would fucking surprise me these days. Like, I know that everyone's talking about the Ravens, but to be fair, like, they've made some questionable calls on keeping Lamar Jackson out there late in games as well. And he's been running the ball and getting slaughtered. And if one of those hits was, just a little bit slightly different angle or whatever, like, you'd be saying, what the fuck are the Ravens doing, keeping him out there? So.
And the thing with Lamar is he's putting together an MVP campaign. True. And that is why they've probably pushed the limit a little bit more. There's been games where he's thrown 4 TDs and they're going to win. They're up 20 plus. He stays out there and throws the fifth one, right? And that's actually, again, just builds into why we're finding value here, because the NFL is a unique sport where one player and key position players, their health is so much tied to the success of the team. And that is why these teams can't take the risk, especially if it's unnecessary risk. That's why we're hoping that these teams will make the smart choice and lay down their arms, essentially, and that'll help us win a few of these best bets.
Oh, for sure. And we'll talk about it when we get to the Ravens game, but like you and me were discussing, Lamar Jackson's probably worth like 8 to 9 points in a point spread. I don't think you could find me another team sport, where one single position could move the odds 8 to 9 points.
No, I mean, a rugby league reference, I think Jonathan Thurston...
Not 8 to 9.
No, in his prime, I think he was close to a converted try. I think that Cowboys team relied on him so much that if there was a game he was out, it would move. But that's right. No, it's not the same as the quarterback position in American football.
100%. Let's move on to the Cardinals, plus 6 points at the LA Rams. 45 points is the total. This game is off the board in some places. Most places have it up. It's a shame we got a little bit late on it. The Rams were laying 3.5 points now. Now that's ticked up to 6. Obviously, a bit of uncertainty about Kyler Murray. He will be a game-time decision in this game, coming in very banged up. So I would not be surprised if he sits. And honestly, that plus 6 line is probably leaning more towards the side that he sits. But I think that even if he does play, the Rams should still be able to win this one with a not 100% fully healthy Kyler Murray, and if he does sit, then we've got an absolutely great bet here. And the Rams at home, last game of the season, I think they should be too good here.
Yeah, and it's just like the Cardinals, who we were on last week, pull a great road upset. They've honestly had a season where they have not disgraced themselves at all. I know they've only won 5 games. There was a tie in there too. They've pushed a lot of good teams to the wire. But, Kyler Murray was a big part. He has improved. He's the number one pick. He's improved through the year. Yep. He's used his legs more as a threat. And we know how a mobile quarterback just makes offenses that much harder to stop. And while the backup, Brett Hundley, is a mobile QB, I mean, he's not anywhere near the level of Kyler Murray. That's a huge loss. You're putting him out there in front of a defensive front with Aaron Donald. The Rams, I guess that my concern would be, are we sure they bring it? Like, it was a tough loss for them. They were still alive a week ago and they lose, a late fourth quarter game or on a field goal last play to San Fran. But I still think there's pride in this team.
At home,
I guess I'm also worried that, the Rams played the Cardinals like a month ago or less than a month ago and won by about 30. So there's a revenge factor for the Cardinals. But at the end of the day, Rams are at home and I think they are significantly better. And certainly if Kyler Murray plays, 6 points is not going to be enough. Sorry, if Kyler Murray's out. Yes. 6 ain't enough with the Cards. So we're going to lay, and I think we've got under 6 as well.
We did. We got the Rams laying 4.5 points. It's the only place you'll be able to find it is on Bet Easy at $1.90. That's a great bet because that line, like we said, is 6 at most places. Next up, the Colts laying 4 points at the Jags. 42.5 points is the total. No play for us here, but I think if I had to lean aside, I would only be able to play the Jags here. Disappointing performance last week, and honestly, they should have covered against the Falcons. They had multiple opportunities at the end to get in for a touchdown. Couldn't do it. On the other hand, the Colts just had a massive blowout win, and honestly, that probably looked a little bit better than it should have. Nyheim Hines obviously getting the 2 punt return touchdowns, which blew the score out. So I've got a Colts team coming off, a big home win where, the score probably blew out more than it should. I've got the Jags coming off, a game where they probably lost by, more than they should have. So there's no way that I think that the Colts are a full touchdown better than the Jags here. So look, I would only play the Jags, but once again, they have been putrid to finish the season. So if I get a poor performance out of the Jags, that's the only thing that's sort of keeping us off the game here.
The line appears to be giving line value with Jacksonville. As you say, they're at home and they're +5. So are they really 8 points worse than the Colts? The Colts have kind of struggled in the last month of the season, but the Colts team, you've got a really good head coach. You've got a prideful group that wants to finish 8-8. We've alluded to this many times. The quarterback walked out on the team a fortnight before the season. That's still a pretty good effort to win 8 games this year.
And you wonder what they could have done with Andrew Luck,
Absolutely. They were a contender with Luck, so that was a shame. But with the Jags, it's like, I think in the last 7 weeks, they're losing against the spread by an average of about 2 touchdowns a game. In fact, in the last 7 weeks, you can make an argument they've played one good quarter, which was the fourth quarter at the Raiders, where they came back from double digits and won, screwed a couple of our best bets.
Gone down the fucking toilet.
Now, if you want to make a case for the Jags, they've had a debacle as well. They had Tom Coughlin, head of operations or whatever his title was, just being a ridiculous, drill sergeant for the team, finding players for not being early to meetings, and they've had all grievances against the league and a fully disgruntled locker room. Now, he's been fired, so do they now lift and try? And they were down about 20 points to the Falcons, and they did come back and could have easily covered the game last week. So you're going to use that as evidence that this team doesn't give up. Like, there's that. But ultimately, as you say, so inconsistent that we can't trust them. And I think Colts probably win the game, but it's too many to lay on the road.
Yeah, and there's better bets on the board. Like the next game, the Raiders +3 at the Broncos. 41 points is the total. Well, how unlikely for the Raiders to still be alive. They needed 5 results to go their way last week, obviously including them winning. And all 5 of those results went their way. So they still have, I think a 10% chance or an 8% chance to make the playoffs. They need to win this game. They need the Texans to upset the Titans. They need the Ravens to win and the Colts to win. Not impossible, right? But, and that's the case for the Raiders. They're still alive. They got the emotional win last week against the Chargers. You're still a chance to make the playoffs. Look, I don't necessarily see that as a massive good thing, really, for the Raiders here. I think that was such an emotionally charged win last week. Now you have, I think it's almost a little bit more of a distraction. They're going to get asked a lot by the media about making the playoffs, etc. And honestly, this Broncos team, at the moment, as it's currently constructed, with the Raiders missing Josh Jacobs and Tyrell Williams, their best wide receiver, this Broncos team, in my eyes, is better. and they have a pretty strong home field advantage. The Raiders, coming off a tough game against the Chargers last week, now have to travel to altitude after everything that's happened during the week. I think they're going to be a little bit gassed here, and I think the Broncos are going to put up a good performance in their last home game of the season. I think there's, I know the line is only 3. I think the Broncos are the better team here. They're at home, and I think the Raiders could fade in the second half here. Honestly, I think that the Broncos could win by 20.
Yeah, this might seem counterintuitive. We're mostly trying to bet on teams that we know we're going to get a good effort from, and you would expect a good effort from the Raiders because they're still alive, and that's pretty miraculous. No one picked the Raiders to make the playoffs. I will say one of the reasons they're still alive is because they snuck up on a few teams earlier in the year and pulled wins when teams underestimated them, and then once teams kind of took them seriously, they resembled more of a below-average team. They lost multiple games by 20-plus points, and that's the reason they actually fell out of the playoff race when they were like in a wildcard hunt. In fact, they still were in a position to win the division at one point.
Yeah, when
they've come back to earth.
I think.
Yeah, and that's showing their true ability. It's also because they've suffered a few injuries, and I think the fact that the Raiders are still playing to make the playoffs actually adds motivation to the Broncos. These are division rivals. This is a team, the Raiders, that already beat the Broncos in the opening game of the season. So there's a little bit of a revenge factor to get them back in the last one and be the team that eliminates them. And the Broncos, what I love about them is that they've been fighting every week. They've had a lot of tough losses. They've also lost their quarterback, but losing Flacco is not a big loss to me. And you got Vic Fangio, a first-year coach. Always like when it's a coach who is going to be there next year, so the players need to keep fighting for him. And he's coming out saying, we're not happy with our record, but we love each other and we fight every week, and we've got pride. And if he's saying that, you can't lay an egg as a home favourite in week 17. So I'm with you. I think that the Broncos are the better team, will be every bit as juiced up as the Raiders. There's also the possibility news filters through that Tennessee's up 2 touchdowns against the Texans, so then they could literally have their season ended mid-game here. But regardless of that, I just like the value on the Broncos. This line would be 6 or more if the Raiders were eliminated. And 100%. I don't think it changes the way the Broncos play it. And I don't think just because the Raiders have a 10% chance to make it, they can't magically summon more energy and more ability. They are what they are. They're not going to win this game.
Indeed, we've got 3 best bets at the moment. We're taking the Broncos laying 3 points. That one's $1.80 on Bet365, on Unibet, and I think on Ladbrokes and Neds as well. Taking the Broncos laying 1.5 points in the first half. That is $1.80 on Unibet. And staying on Unibet at $1.91, we're going to take the Broncos race to 20 points. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles minus 4 points at the New York Giants. 45 points is the total. Interesting game, this one. Obviously, the huge game last week for the Eagles was against the Cowboys. That was basically for the division. I mean, they made it out like it was for the division, and it pretty much was. All the Eagles need to do to win the division now and be in the playoffs as a number 6 seed is to beat the Giants.
To be a number 4 seed. If you win your division,
number 4 seed. Yes,
you'll be hosting.
Yep. Is to beat the Giants or hope that the Cowboys lose this week. And to be honest, the Eagles have max motivation for this one, obviously. But they're laying 4 points. And this Eagles team is absolutely decimated at the moment. So I understand that this Giants team is below average. But they've got some stuff to play for here too. Not just pride, but Saquon Barkley to get 1,000 rushing yards for the season. He's currently on 911, so he'd need 89 more to get to 1,000. I think that is important to him and important to this Giants team. So it's another one of those prop bets we may look to play tomorrow once that comes out. But look, this Eagles team, they're not that good. And they have been losing players, dropping players like flies. Deshaun Jackson obviously has been out since pretty much the start of the season. You lose Alshon Jeffrey. You lose Nelson Aguilar. And now Zach Ertz is confirmed out for this game. You have no one else to throw to. So, look, I know that the Eagles, this is max motivation for them. You win and you're in. But I think there's a chance that the Giants could cause the upset here at home.
That's right. People will look at this game and see a Philly team that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, that has a great record in must-win games, has run the gauntlet several times, seems to always pull out the win, as they did last week, and we were spot on with unders and with Philly last week against the Cowboys. And they're going to think they're going to beat a Giants team who knows whether they even really want to win this game. But I think Giants at home, Giants won last week in overtime, which actually took their hat out of the ring for getting a top 3 pick. So they're not in the running for a Chase Young. And so winning this one doesn't hurt their draft pick too much, something you would consider. Look, they will want to feed Saquon Barkley. That's not a bad thing. He hurt himself mid-season, missed a couple games, came back, was not himself. But last couple of weeks, he's been dynamic. The more times he touches the ball, the better for this team. So if they feed Saquon, which I think they will, and it's another one to stay tuned tomorrow, we'll be looking for props to take advantage if we can. And as for Philly, as I said, we were spot on last week pulling the win against Dallas, but you watched them play that game and you saw Ertz get crunched and play with broken ribs, and you saw more defensive backs go off the field. They were hanging by a thread in that game, and they pulled through. But what have they got left in the tank to win this one? Now, they may well win, but we're getting more than, well over a field goal as well with the home team. And this could go down to the wire. It would not surprise if the Eagles win by a field goal or something like that too. So, of course, the value seems to be with New York in this one.
And I'll tell you what, if the Eagles... And sorry, Lockie, I did have those names mixed up, but that's been fixed now, so hopefully you can see the edited bets on there. I'll tell you what, Jacob, though, you rarely get... it happens every now and then, but a home team that's an underdog, I'm telling you, if the Eagles win this game, they'll be dogs in their first playoff game, mate.
You mean in the playoffs?
Yeah.
You rarely... It's interesting, though, because we may play a very beat-up Seattle and may actually not be an underdog at home. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
If you look at the power ratings, I don't think Seattle are like 6 points rated better than Philly with injuries, but that is an interesting point. That'll be one to watch.
So we got 3 best bets on this one. We're taking the Giants plus 4.5 points for the game. That's $1.85 on Sportsbet. The Giants plus 3 points in the first half, $1.86 on Bet365. And the Philly Eagles team total under 25.5 points. That is $1.83 on Bet365. Next up, the Steelers laying 2 points at the Baltimore Ravens. 37 points is the total. You guys may look at these odds too and be like, what the fuck? The Ravens are the best team in the league. Why are they underdogs at home? It's because they're essentially resting as many people as they can. Lamar Jackson's not going to be playing. Obviously, Mark Ingram's still being rested. And they're resting a bunch of offensive and defensive players. So it'll be RG3 out there at quarterback. And look, yeah, the Ravens will probably lose this game. I would play the Steelers here, laying the 2 points. They need the game. If they win the game, they're not necessarily in. They'd still need, I think, the Texans to beat the Titans. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
To get the number 6 seed. So the Steelers do have motivation for this one, but the Ravens still are the best team in the comp, and it's just going to depend on how many people. They said they're going to rest as many people as they legally can in this one. Obviously, you can't just rest the whole team and play like homeless people off the street. But I would lean to the Steelers in this one. But Jacob, you had a slight lean to the Ravens, so we left it. And honestly, it's probably not a bad thing, because I don't think the Steelers winning this game is a slam dunk away from home.
It's funny you mention that, because I'll do a cross-sport analogy. The Ravens are absolutely killing it this year. In round ball, there's a team called Liverpool that is absolutely killing everyone this year. They're going to win the Premier League and probably win. If they've already won the World Club Challenge, they're going to win other trophies too. And they had a lot of games in a row, including an important World Club game a day after a local domestic game. And in soccer, what you can do and what they did is played their full youth team and got beat 5-0. But in the NFL, it doesn't work like that. You have like a 53-man active roster. You have 11 players starting on offense, 11 on defense, 11 special teams. You have key backups. You've only got so many troops, so you can't rest everybody. And so with that in mind, they will have a lot of key players out, but it's still a very complete roster. Now, you mentioned the Steelers. Are they motivated? Of course. They win and the Titans lose, they're into the playoffs. If the Titans don't lose, it's still an 8-8 season, great achievement. It's still beating your fiercest rival, no question about it. Steelers want to win this game, but the Ravens hate the Steelers too. They don't want to let the Steelers in the playoffs. Whoever does suit up for the Ravens will still be going balls to the wall to win this game. And the reason that I probably won't play the Steelers, even though I lean that way, is because the Ravens already have the bye locked up. So the players who do play, I think they can afford to go hard, knowing that nobody's playing for 2 weeks. So you get a little bit banged up, or a few players here and there. It's worth it for the, additional reps that you get to give your fringe players, whoever's out there, I think can still go hard, because sometimes you can get hurt going out there trying to, avoid contact in a funny way. So I think this could be a bit of a trap where the Ravens come out. It's still the same offensive line that Jackson's been wreaking havoc. Not saying RG3 is Lamar Jackson, but if he can do a poor man's version, if the Ravens get the lead, Mason Rudolph, who's not good, is out. So it's definitely Duck Hodges. And we saw against the Bills, he can't chase points. So it could be a bit of a trap. And that's why we're just going to pass the game.
We are just going to pass the game. One game that we are not passing is the Titans laying 5.5 points at the Texans. 45 points is the total. I know, Jacob, you were onto this one pretty quickly. You were saying if the Texans won last week against the Bucks, then just to jump on the Titans pretty much straight away because they couldn't win the division. And sure enough, I'm not sure what this line opened at. I mean, I've been seeing it at about 3, and now it's ticked all the way up to about 5.5. Do you happen to know what it was before the Texans played last week?
Well, I mean, these two teams are pretty comparable. Texans are at home, so if you could have bet this game last week before they'd played and they knew what was at stake, Texans would have been a field goal favourite.
Right. So we like the Titans here. The Texans have basically nothing to play for. They're pretty much locked into the number 4 seed. The only way they could move up is if the Chiefs lose, who play at the same time. No, who play in the...
The Chiefs do play the earlier time slot.
Okay, so they play in the earlier time slot. So the only way the Texans could move up is if the Chiefs win and the Texans... the Chiefs lose and the Texans win this one. But really, once again, I said the same thing for the Chiefs. It would only move them from the number 4 seed to the number 3 seed, which isn't, a huge enough reason, I think, to play all your starters and get the win. And I mean, the Texans have said, look, we are going to play our starters in this game. I don't think that they are. Now it's coming out, Deshaun Watson, mystery illness. DeAndre Hopkins, mystery illness now. So I think they're kind of already planting the seeds that some of these guys will not play, or at least not play a full game. And the Titans, they're going to be going balls to the wall in this one. If they win, they're in. The equation's very simple for them. They win, they're in at the number 6 seed. So the Titans are going to win this game. There's pretty much no doubt in my mind. And I think that despite what the Texans camp is saying, they have to play next week no matter what. So they're going to want some of their players to be fresh. And we know that Deshaun Watson's had some injuries throughout the season. DeAndre Hopkins has had some injuries throughout the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if both those players rested for this one.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm. We've got one team that has to win. Their whole season comes down to this full focus, full effort, going all in to win. And you got the other team that, as you say, this is only in like a 20% chance if the Chiefs get upset. That we're even considering. There's a 20% chance that the Texans have a negligible motivation, which is to finish 3rd or 4th. Either way, it's playing next week at home, and it's whether you play the Bills or potentially the Titans. And if you're going to play them again, you don't want to show them your best game plan necessarily. So
one thing we can't discount, and you know all about this, is how bad Bill O'Brien is and how many terrible decisions he makes.
And this could be the game that was like last year where the Dallas Cowboys played everyone down to the wire and, funnily enough, ran out of petrol a couple of weeks later. But these coaches, I don't know, they're old school. I play to win every week. I want my win record, But the goal is to win the Super Bowl, and the goal is to win playoff games. And burning out your key players is not the recipe to do that. And also the Titans are the kind of team that when they get on top of you, they do start to steamroll, which is why we're also liking the second half plays. Even if the Texans do play starters to begin and start pulling those guys out, there's no reason on earth why Deshaun Watson should be in this game, in the fourth quarter. So I love this game here. And it's definitely one that we'll throw in a lot of correlated multis. It just makes too much sense to take the Titans.
Yep, we will. We've only got 2 bets as of now. We're taking the Titans laying 5 points. That's $1.87 on Unibet. We're also going to take the Titans race to 20 points. It's a great bet. That's $1.80 on BetEasy. Moving on to the Redskins, plus 10.5 points at the Cowboys. 45.5 points is the total. Well, what a letdown spot for the Cowboys. Obviously, last week was their grand final. That was their, the big game to win the division, to lock up the division. They lost that one against Philly, and now you have to turn around and play the Skins. But I think, like we said, there's still something at stake here for the Cowboys. Obviously, if they win, and Philly loses, then they are into the playoffs and they are division champs. And I think the Cowboys know that there is certainly a chance that Philly goes into the Giants and actually loses this game. So although I don't want to lay the 10.5 points with the Cowboys because recently their offense has been a bit sputtery, I can't take the 10.5 with the Skins either, even though I think that's the side, just because Terry McLaurin, who's been basically everything for that team this season at wide receiver, is out for this game. So no play for me.
Yeah, like the Cowboys, they've much maligned and have dropped a lot of games, copped a lot of criticism. I think Garrett, his tenure is finally going to come to an end.
To be fair.
The only way this season could get any worse for them would be if they lost this game, but Philly also lost. So essentially, all they would have had to do was beat the Redskins to make the playoffs. And we spoke about how Philly can easily lose. So percentage-wise, they've got like a 25 to 30% chance of winning the division. So I won't question the Cowboys' motivation in this one. And they are like too good for the Redskins. They should outmatch them and they should win by double digits. But I won't play them either because we don't know in a week are we going to hear that Dak Prescott has a torn rotator cuff. I mean, he didn't look right last week. They admitted the shoulder injury. He was missing wide open players. You've got Case Keenum comes into the team with Haskins out, but that could actually be an upgrade. You've got to acknowledge the fact that the Redskins haven't rolled over to end the season yet. They've pushed a few teams to the wire. They've had a couple of comebacks, which keeps the back door open if they are down, 17. They get that late score. So that's what the case for the Redskins, but at the same time, I can see Dallas rolling, so we're passing the game.
Indeed, and Monday Night Football, 49ers laying...
Sunday night,
sorry. Yeah, that's right, because it's all on the same day. 49ers laying 3 points at the Seattle Seahawks. 47 points is the total. Well, the Seahawks, they've been banged up as all fuck lately. I mean, they're down to 0 running backs. They had to sign Marshawn Lynch off the street, and he will be making his first start in over a year for the Seahawks here in this one. Very exciting. Obviously, that's one of the reasons to watch this one. Also, the game is obviously for the division title here. And the thing is here, the 49ers, and maybe Jacob, because I've heard a lot about this recently, about the Seahawks not needing the game as much of the 49ers. The 49ers obviously need to win to get the number 1 seed. But I think you were pretty much first off the mark with this one and in front of everyone else in figuring out that the Seahawks actually don't have that much to gain from winning this game. So maybe you can walk us through your thoughts on how much more motivation the 49ers have for this game than the Seahawks.
Yeah, and because it isn't obvious, that's why we're getting such an advantage. I love the bets that I guess are on the screen right now that we're taking on the Niners, and this is why. The winner of this game wins the NFC West, which is a huge achievement, and of course both teams want to do that. And after the Niners started the year undefeated and the Seahawks dropped a couple early, for the Seahawks to come all the way back and win the division would be huge. So they want to win, but the Niners need to win. This is where the stakes are quite different. The Niners equation is super simple. Win this game, finish number 1 in the NFC. That means you guarantee a bye. It means you guarantee every game you play before the Super Bowl is in San Francisco, and you can't beat that. And this team is built to win playoff games and has a chance to go all the way.
Yep.
So you know what we get out of San Fran. Now, Seattle, while they can win the division, they cannot necessarily get a bye. There is only one circumstance where they can finish in the top 2. That would be if Green Bay loses earlier in the day. And I think that's extremely unlikely. I talked about how I'm fairly certain that whether or not Green Bay wins by the 13 that they need to, they're going to win that game.
Yes.
So I'm essentially saying when Seattle turns up to this one on Sunday night, it's kind of a shame it's the showcase game, but Seattle really won't have a lot to play for because they will be faced with 2 possibilities: win and host the Vikings the following week.
A good team.
Lose and go to Philly or Dallas. Now, the chance of that winning that next game is probably pretty similar. So do you really want to go all out and battle the 49ers in absolute war, which it will be, to get a win over the Niners? You may win, and then you're going to be bloody gassed for the following week. Or even worse, you may fight them tooth and nail to the wire and lose.
Yep.
And you did all that fighting for nothing. And on top of all this, what's even better is the Seahawks are depleted right now. You mentioned they got no running back. They got a guy who's the 4th string who's had 8 carries in his career, who's going to have to play, and Marshawn Lynch off the couch eating how many Skittles, you've got Jadeveon Clowney and Quandre Diggs, two absolute playmakers on defense. They're not going to be playing. You've got Russell Wilson, who is the heart and soul of this team. Are you going to risk him, running him around out there in front of this fierce San Fran defensive line, or are you going to have him standing in the pocket potentially taking hits? I just see no upside for the Seahawks in this one. And I know that they're at home and they want to win the division, and that's why people might think that Seattle's a good play here as an underdog of a field goal, but I want no part of it. San Fran will win this game. In fact, they'll probably roll them. They're going to be in a lot of our multis, and I'm going to be looking for value plays for San Fran to win by a margin as well.
Oh, for sure. And I guess you mentioned that, if the Seahawks win this one, obviously, they'd be at home, but they'd be hosting a good Vikings team, which probably is resting some of their players this week. So it would be fresh as a daisy.
And don't be fooled that the Vikings aren't a quality team. The Vikings were a -5 or -6 favorite at home to the Packers on Monday Night Football. So in the eyes of the odds makers, the Vikings are better than the Packers.
In a max motivation spot for the Packers.
Who will probably be a top 2 seed. And the thing is, although the Vikings lost by 13, they didn't need to win that game and they rested players. So the true Vikings that come out and play sudden death football are more formidable than anyone that comes out of the NFC East.
100%. And let's say that the Seahawks have an analytics team there, maybe a guy that's into, spread betting and lines and probability and stuff like that. What would you say would be, the better outcome in terms of the actual odds of winning? Would the Seahawks be, obviously they would be favored against the Vikings at home. But, would they'd be favored, away to Philly?
Put it this way. The way I see it,
it'd be comparable.
If Seattle hosts Vikings, I make them less than a field goal favorite at home.
Yes.
If they're on the road to the Eagles, I make them less than a field goal dog.
Negligible.
So both games are close to 50-50 chance of winning.
Yeah, 100%. Negligible. Good work, Jacob. And that's why we figured out that the 49ers have way more at stake here than the Seahawks, and it is one of our favorite plays of the round. We are taking the 49ers laying 3 points. That is $1.85 on BetEasy. And we're also taking the 49ers laying 2 points in the first half. That's $1.90 on Bet365. But we may or may not come up with some more bets on that game tomorrow. And that is going to wrap it. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in to that week 17. I really like the bets this week. I think we have quite a few, maybe the most we've had all season. But week 17 is often the time where you can find value in the NFL. So looking to finish it off strong. Once again, we will still have Bet365 multi will be out in the app today. So will the Unibet multi, which cashed at $5 last week. That'll be in the Tripod app for free today as well. And obviously, we will keep rolling out those same game multis, which we've been doing very well on all season. So, Jacob, anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here on a Saturday?
No, I think let's end the year with a bang because these games will take place on the 30th of December. It'd be a very nice way to end what's been a really good 2019. And, I just advise people to stay tuned on the app because, again, we're going to look for player props tomorrow. And even depending on what happens through the day on Monday, we may even, if we see some great value, we always share it with you boys. And there could be more value. Like I say, I love the 49ers in that bookend game of the season. But at the moment, we've only got 2 best bets. But if we can find more ways to get some good value, we will. So
100%.
Check the app Sunday night. Check the app even through the day Monday, especially if you're on holidays and you've got the opportunity to catch some of these games. It's good money-making opportunity, and it's always fun to watch these games with everyone playing their last regular season game of the season, lots at stake as we outlined. And the 365 multis, which we often go for 40, 50, 100 to 1. We haven't won one this year. We're up 90 units on multis. We have not won a 365 multi, I admit, and I'm sorry, but we've lost by one leg about 5 times, including last week. So maybe week 17 is where it happens. We put out a 40 to 1 that we've already hit the $3 leg, and it rolls in with some of our favorite plays this week. Maybe that's one to piggyback because it is correlated. So even if you didn't get the first leg, those other plays are still rock solid. But it's all gone down in the app and in the Tripod group.
Definitely. And like Jacob said, make sure you check the app. But if you've got the app, if you've got the Tripod app, just make sure that it's updated to the most recent version. Make sure you've got your notifications set on. And you won't even have to check it. You will get a push notification every time we post out a bet. And that'll get to you within a couple of minutes of us posting. So you'll be right on it. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we will see you next Saturday, 10 a.m. to break down playoffs. See you then.
Wildcard weekend.
Wildcard weekend. Catch you then.